Hello again, everybody, to the Chuck the Comic Guy podcast. And I'm done counting episodes. I'm not going to keep going with the numerical listings anymore. I'm just going to say it's Thursday. And thank you for anybody who's taken a chance to listen and to subscribe and like and follow. And a reminder, anybody that's just catching me for the first time, Chuck the Comic Guy on Instagram, TikTok, Substack, YouTube, and Spotify. Those are all my 5 social medias for now. And I'm just, again, thank you to anybody who's given me a chance to listen to anything I have to rant and talk about in the comic book community. And it's Thursday. We're almost into July and it's end of June. And it's been a pretty busy month. So last I left off, I had talked to Michael Rooney of Ascendium Studios, and you could check that episode out before this episode, and it was a great interview, and he's actually working on Venator issue 2 that should be coming out pretty soon if it's not already out there, and it was a great time with him. And then I just a quick life update. So shortly after my last episode, I had to go back in for dental work. It's going to be probably just like my Achilles heel of things. And so it was, I knew this was coming. I had to get a couple teeth pulled, unfortunately, because it was just, I'm at that age where that just starts to happen to people. Unfortunately, I had no control over this. I had actually a perfectly healthy tooth that just was part of an infection that had taken place for quite some time. And so it just became one of those things where it was out of my control. Unfortunately, it had to go. and on top of that, it was also with a wisdom tooth that was right next to it. So even if I had wanted to keep the tooth, it was inevitable that I was going to have to lose one or both of them. So I'm recovering from that, and I've got stitches in my mouth, and I'm on ibuprofen's the safest painkiller I think I could possibly take. And so that's been my fun for the last week, is trying to just get over that. And it hasn't been too bad, realistically. It's just one of those things. Life hits you, and getting older, it's just take care of your teeth. Anybody younger that has a full set of teeth, take care of them. I'm lucky I still have a fair amount of my original teeth. It just, that's just how the thing shakes out for me. And then New Comic Book Day was yesterday. So I went to my local comic shop, and this is a week that was kind of a slow week for releases. I mean, there was some new stuff out there, but there wasn't anything that I've been kind of waiting for to have hit my shelves yet. And I just went ahead and just hit a couple back issues in the meantime, and just kind of, now that I just had a bunch of dental work, I'm going to hold on a little bit more, hold my money closer to me instead of paying for a bunch of books that I don't really necessarily need right away. Next week, I think will be a better outcome when I go, just to get a couple different things. But I still wanted to support. I went and made the trip, so I still wanted to support the comic book shop and in some form or way. And I went ahead and bought a couple back issues I had for $1 each. So just to fill out my collection and just try to open and explore new titles. And then I also, in the mix of before getting my dental work done, I had this last weekend. It was Father's Day weekend, right? Last weekend. I wanted to treat myself to a fun time at the movie theater. And I had put this in my original podcast last episode I was going to go see Supergirl, and then I bought tickets online, and here's where it gets kind of screwy. So when you used to buy tickets online, if the movie wasn't in cinema yet, you just couldn't get the tickets yet, because they didn't do this whole, you can get a ticket, like you had to wait the day of or the night of or whatever to get your tickets online, because otherwise it's not showing yet. So don't try to get tickets to something that's not showing. And now they've made this whole thing where it's kind of like they lock you in and they get you to buy tickets a week in advance just to make sure. And I get that it makes sense for certain films that like you're going to want to get tickets. Like they're already selling tickets to Spider-Man Brand New Day. And that's one of those things where you just like, you used to be just get to the box office or get them online day of. And I made the stupid mistake of thinking that Supergirl, for some reason, either because it's been promoted a lot in the last week, so I think I felt like it was released. And then I saw showtimes on my phone, and I was like, oh, I can get a ticket now and go spend my... And it kind of made sense to have it a Father's Day release, I guess, but I guess maybe not. So I went to my theater with ticket in hand and realized, oops, that's for next week. So now, and of course, it's a weekend that's completely, I am so busy this weekend. I'm still hoping to get out there and check it out. And I want to see it opening weekend just to make sure I help contribute and support the studio. And now I'm all screwed up. So I think I can make this happen some way, somehow this weekend to make it out there. And speaking of, I wanted to mention that the reviews, there's early reviews already, and I don't like that the early reviews are always kind of like the precursor what's to be the final outcome of reviews, because it's and there's still not really a true audience score yet. There might be some people that have some sort of way of getting to like the premiere night, or, there's obviously influencers or people that have some sort of sway to get in to see it before it actually hits theaters on a mass scale. And so I've been seeing that the reviews have been really wishy-washy on it. So far, Rotten Tomatoes, and I don't like using this as a gauge of anything because it's Rotten Tomatoes. You can interpret, and it's very subjective however you want to interpret it. It's currently at 58 critic review. So 58%, it's kind of got the little green slime image next to it. That's not a good sign either. But I'm not trying to shoot the film down yet. And so last night, on a whim, because it was on Amazon, it was just to kill time and not be so bored, watched Aquaman 2, also starring Jason Momoa, who's in Supergirl. And I actually didn't even give that film a shot when it first came out, because we all knew the DCEU, whatever universe, was kind of dismantling at that point. It was just kind of like, get it out there and get it released, and then that's the final chapter, and we're going to James Gunn, and we're going to redo everything. So I watched it, and that movie is still, like, right now holding like a 33% Rotten Tomatoes score. Again, however you want to subjectively review that as. But it definitely lends itself to being that review. And so Aquaman 2 was not, it was kind of like the first half of the film was very CGI heavy, and I didn't like it. I didn't mind the first Aquaman film. I wasn't a fan of Jason Momoa being the role of Aquaman, and I know he is a good fit for it now in retrospect, but I'm used to Aquaman being kind of looks like an Archie character with a short blonde hair, like the old school Aquaman. And now it kind of became, when he came to the forefront for Aquaman, it was like, oh, DC's version of Thor is the guy that swims in the water. He was like, got to be the big, muscular long hair with a beard. And it seemed like he was like the counterpart, the DC movie equivalent to Thor of the MCU. And so I thought, well, okay, fine. I can accept the little changes that they made into his look to kind of give him a modern look. And I watched the second film last night, and I thought, wow, yeah, it's no wonder this is like the end chapter here, because the second half wasn't that bad. I'll be honest. Like, when it got into the whole point where, like, okay, there's a lot of like things at stake, and he has to protect his family. It's not trying to give away anything plot wise. We haven't seen it. Just like a generic plot thing is just protecting his loved ones. That's any film. So, anyway, it got better at the end. The first half was just like CGI. It felt like CGI garbage for the sake of CGI garbage, and the plot was kind of a little eh. But the second half got better, and then, I'm just kind of like, it is what it is. I could 50-50 it, really, on a review scale. Like, it balanced itself out at the end. And now going into Supergirl, there's been a lot of bad press with this movie going into it. It's like they've been really drilling the star Miley Alcock about, they've been hitting her with random press questions that just almost like put her too much in the hot seat position. And now it turns into some sort of like headline that makes her look bad and makes the film look bad, based on her responses to things that are just like an agenda based response, not that she's trying to agendaize it, if that's a word, and turn it into an agenda. It's just that they proposed agendaed questions to her that are outside the scope of what the film is, and then it just like reflects them just trying to, again, put her in a hot seat and try to get clickbait titles and headlines for it. And so that's kind of gone into this whole thing. And then the overall, like, see, I've seen people that are heavily defending this because let's just give it a shot and they haven't seen it yet. And then there's people that are like, you know, oh, well, I've already like seen enough from the trailers or based on certain things or characteristics of the character. So they're shooting it down, and it's just a bummer because it's like, let's just enjoy it for what it's worth. Give it a shot. You know, sometimes the first film doesn't really land properly, and then, or it doesn't come off as strong as the next films. And again, I'd still fear that this is going to get the bad cinema effect of it's not going to land well, and then it's going to, financially, and then at that point it makes it seem like, yeah, this is the end already for DC and their film industry, and there's still plenty of things to come. So let's just give it a shot. I'm just trying to be as optimistic as possible about this. And I want to see it. I feel good about it. And I just, I think it could be, I like that James Gunn has got things in his corner for this now. I think he's got a little bit more, I think he's got a better hold and grasp of what things are going on at DC than what they had before him, and kind of bringing things back to the way things used to be in the design aspect of things. So we'll see. And so, yeah, I just say give it a shot, and let it be. I guess, you try to keep your opinions somewhat to yourself. I mean, we could be critical to some extent. I always say try to be critical, but like with some level of respect of criticism, because we can always take our criticisms and guide it to a different path. And I just had a comment that was someone on social media had posted about certain things that, particularly this film, saying that the fan base is like, we've already become toxic about it. And I tried to lend a very optimistic approach. But I also remember that we were also, as a voice, not all of us as a comic book community, but like as people that recognize certain things as being kind of like a little off. So like this first Sonic the Hedgehog film, we all remember, or at least most of us remember, that when we saw the first design of Sonic going into the trailers, it looked a little weird. His eyes were not shaping correctly, and he looked kind of just off. And the community, which Sonic has a very, very large community of fans. They have like their own little, it's similar to like what the Star Wars cult I've referred to. There's a Sonic cult out there too. And a lot of them spoke out like, we're not going to watch this if this is what he's going to look like the whole entire film. And luckily, it was a little hard, it was a little brash, a little harsh, but it was honest. And it's not that they were totally like, it's going to happen, or it just doesn't happen, I guess. Some studios could just say, yep, it's not going to work, so let's just can it. And they went back and fixed it for the fans. And now it's going into like its fourth sequel. So, that's a good sign of things. Mika would always still be pretty like vocal and express our opinions about what's going on, and hopefully it fixes things and hits the right ears. But let's not be too very brashly threatening in our tone of doing that, because it could turn really south really quick. So I hope that we get a good chance to really enjoy this, what's happening in the James Gunn end of things with DC. Then in news, I wanted to talk about a couple of headlines that came up. So one was, we officially got a title for the re-release theatrical Endgame that's coming September 25th. And I thought about this now. Okay, so let me just start with this. Endgame Encore, that's the title that Marvel's going with for the extended cut, with more things that are tying into what Doomsday is going to be. That's going to be September 25th. And here's the catch, right? This is going to be their big launch into Infinity Vision. Now, if you don't know what Infinity Vision is, It's Disney's creative term for we set a standard so high that nobody can touch us, and on a theater level. And it's just kind of, I don't know. I don't like that Disney has done this because they announced this at CinemaCon, okay? And it came very tone deaf, the whole approach of everything at CinemaCon, because this is also the same week they laid off like 100 different, Disney and Marvel creators and designers. And then they came out, and while everybody was pretty tame in their CinemaCon press, whether it's Sony or anybody else for that matter, Disney just came out like they were completely just. I guess they kind of came off very pompous in their tone, and they very like as they're laying people off, they're bragging about this great thing they've got, and it feels just kind of off with that they did that. And so they announced Infinity Vision, which is their new standard of they're making sure that everybody knows that they've created this new bar for the theater experience that's like, this is the best picture quality, the best sound quality. This is our interpretation of what is best. And it comes off at a time when they're not doing so great. So it's just not, in terms of their Marvel properties and film, and I know it's going to bounce back. It's got to. With the next two releases. So it's a little, again, like a tone deaf approach of them kind of being very, they're placating us to some extent of how they feel like we should interpret the film experience. We've already got IMAX. We've already got these these experiences in theaters now that seem a little over the top as it is compared to 20 or 30 years ago. So that things have gotten better. But at the same time, it's just a little, I don't know. To me, it feels like, great, you're doing it again, Disney. You're doing something that is so unattainable, or you're creating some sort of trendy thing that is like automatically going to make everybody below you already like insufficient to you. So, whether other films, and I'm sure this is just basically almost like a monopolized system in which Disney is going to kind of just keep this to their entities that they have as Disney, Marvel, whatever projects. Does this mean that other film studios can utilize your Infinity Vision? I'm sure they should be able to, but at the same time, if they don't want you to, I don't know how that's going to play out. But I also think that it's a way of. So you've already got like Martin Scorsese, who's been very critical about the superhero fatigue and the industry of superhero films. It's basically kind of like starting to take its toll on just random films that would be, considered award-winning films, because the hype of superhero films outdoes the marketing of just standard films. There were so many films back in the day that you would go to and watch that didn't have a superhero. They didn't have some sort of action excitement in them. They were just really good films. They were dramas. They were suspenses. They were romance films. And they would get lots, they would be equal to some of the action films of that year, and if not better then, and seen more seriously. And now the superhero thing, it is kind of tapering off to some extent because we've already kind of seen what we want to see out of it, and we're still going to get some good films. But like after Endgame, that was kind of like that Endgame film was kind of like this Scorsese, way of making a film. And granted, some people will say it was not the greatest Marvel film, but the ending, of course, was kind of like the tear-jerking moment with Tony and all that stuff. So now, if Disney's going to hold this standard, it kind of almost makes you feel like they're trying to make the other studios feel inferior. And then it also creates this tension in that way of saying that don't bother seeing these films if they aren't to our standards or our screen specs. And it hurts the industry, in my opinion. It hurts because now it becomes this thing where, and granted, not many people put that much weight behind it, but some people could. Oh, I'm not going to, I know people that are movie snobs that will say, I refuse to watch anything less than 4K anymore because I've experienced 4K. And if I see just popped a random DVD from 1998 in my 4K player, it's worthless. And so I don't think it's going to hit that hard, but I think it's them trying to make it's hurting the already struggling cinema experience by creating this thing. And of course the cinemas have to play along with this, so I'm sure there's this meet in the middle kind of thing where Disney invests money into the studios or the cinemas, whatever. I don't know how that's all going to roll out, but they've, you know, the cinemas have to at some point get up to par to whatever this thing's going to be to help market it, and I'm sure it's going to cost them money or whatever. However they're going to do, it's going to cost them some sort of resources to do it. So it's just kind of like Disney throwing their weight around. That's the final nutshell of it all. And again, I don't mind Disney or Marvel. I love Marvel products. I love some Disney products. I don't like that this is kind of a thing. This is me being critical. But I also am trying to hope that like in me saying certain things, and we all maybe as a collective start kind of putting our heads together. It's like, can we get the message across that Disney, come on, like bring back the bravado a little bit, please, so that like we can all just appreciate one another, especially since you've like run theme parks about love and happiness and respect. So that's going to be interesting to see what they do. And so going back to what I was going to say earlier. I had said at my, like a couple episodes ago about Brand New Day, maybe that's the time that we get the whole Doomsday trailer, because it's been like, we've been waiting on it. It's almost like GTA 6 at this point. We've been waiting forever. And now I'm starting to wonder whether this whole thing is to push Doomsday's trailer now. Like maybe we get a teaser trailer at Brand New Day. I don't know. And then we get the full length trailer, and it's to help sell the Infinity Vision. So you got to like, they've got this whole thing of an end tag that's going to be only for Infinity Vision. Again, it's a monopoly. It's them, like it's an exclusive. I shouldn't say monopoly. It's an exclusive, because how many things are now like you have to go to this place to get it exclusively? How many things are you have to order it here to get it exclusively, and people miss out? So now you have to go this extra step that you normally wouldn't have ever had to go to for something that like, you're all going to be able to find it online. The end tag thing that they're talking about, it's just going to show up for free on YouTube or TikTok or whatever video service you can find, or Facebook, whatever. It's all going to, and then you're going to be like, the people that had spent the extra step money or whatever it was that cost to go to that are going to feel robbed, because I mean, they're the one that released it, whatever, or someone released it, and someone's going to feel robbed for holding on to that memory to themselves. And while everybody got a chance to see it for free somehow, and that's just the way the internet works now. And it's just going to be, it's again, Disney trying to have that extra, just their way of putting their thumb down on you. And it's no wonder to some reasoning that if Disney owns Marvel, and then Marvel sees dips in sales, or they're not getting the warm reception that they used to in comic books or films, well, maybe you need to look at yourself in the mirror. Because if Disney's doing these little things that feel very just like monarchy, of some sort, I guess, it just seems very like, this is the reason why maybe people don't feel so good about you at times anymore. Maybe, maybe they're feeling a little bit more humble or real, like they feel better about DC or Image or other, Boom Studios or whatever it is. So that's my big rant about Endgame Encore. It went longer than I thought it would. And then, now on a better note, just today, I was scrolling through media, and Scott Snyder announced, and if you don't know Scott Snyder, creator of Absolute Batman is going to get an animated series. Woo! If I had a little sound, I should have a sound effect for an applause. We're going to be super stoked to see how that turns out. I hope it's going to be on the same level quality-wise as the Batman animated series, which for some reason is like, it's like DC starting to warm back up to me again. I was never a big DC guy. There were certain elements of DC I purely loved because it just has, and in retrospect, because of my childhood, I would turn on TV when I came home from school, and there's Batman animated series, and that killed about a half hour of time while I was doing homework or whatever when I was in elementary school, middle school, and I grew up, honestly, I think I grew up with DC from before Marvel even hit my eyeballs because of the 60s Batman show and the Batman movie. every kid at some point, every generation has probably had some attachment, every at least like any. Well, I don't know. I can't even genderify it, but because but for me, at least my generation of friends and kids my age and my gender, so that I know of, and I'm completely just throwing it out there for what I experienced, not trying to exclude anybody, but a lot of my generation and other generations got the dose of like the Nick at Night or whatever. You'd watch Batman, the 60s TV show. And so, and I'll say this from a gender equality kind of perspective. There's a lot of, I've seen it on social media. There is a lot of females and women who love Batman, at least particularly like not just the Batman series, but they love the Batgirl series, and then Barbara Gordon. They are like, there's like DC is really doing something good there with starting to bring in a bigger scope of audience. And just, it's not just that, it's maybe Absolute Wonder Woman or other characters that Harley Quinn. So, I mean, I've got a sister-in-law that loves Harley Quinn, and it's just so cool that DC's kind of, they're starting to get they're step their game up, and they're winning more people over, and they're kind of getting back to me with the Batman stuff. And so now we're going to get an animated series from Scott Snyder, and that's going to be kind of cool to see. And I hope it's kind of like the same feel, but a little bit better than animated series, the Batman animated series from the 90s. So we'll see how that turns out, but that is going to be really cool because that really can open some doors up for DC. You see, that's the other thing with DC too, is that they have, I think their film division is kind of like, okay, like they've got, like they get really hot or cold, and I think they're starting to kind of like get back into the warm area of things, but they release so many animated films based on the titles, the trade paperbacks or whatever, that land really good. I mean, they're well received. I think a lot of people in the DC, that are fans of DC, love the animated series they put out, or the animated films they put out. I mean, you had Phantom Menace. It was kind of like the one that came out of a Batman that started that, and then you got like the Joker stuff, and then they really have been hitting a lot of positives with doing animated films that they can't represent accurately on film, so they have to be able to at least portray them from an animated point of view that actually hits well to the comic book as well. So that's going to be, I think that opens a whole door for Absolute Universe in general, because now we could get animated Absolute Batman, and then we could open up to like Wonder Woman and Green Arrow and Superman, and just like that whole universe is getting blown wide open. So if you're a fan of the Absolute Universe, hopefully this is like yay. This is a big day for you. I'm going to move along to my main topic, and going back to respect and opinions and criticism. I just can't like careen over this because it's become a big thing, is the John Romita Jr. Spider-Man 1000 issue 1000 cover A now variant news. So John Romita Jr., who's the son of John Romita Sr., and they're both longtime Marvel artists. And John Romita Sr., I mean, they both have they have some iconic moments throughout Marvel. And so John Romita Jr., it's subjective to think whether he's as good as his dad or not. I think a lot of people will probably, and he probably may say for himself now, like, it's hard to kind of interpret that, right? Because each artist is different. It doesn't matter whether they have any blood lineage or not. They're going to have their own unique takes. And obviously, John Romita Jr. probably learned a lot from his dad, and he probably learned a lot from other of his peers from an art perspective. So to say that, like, whether he's better or not or whatever, again, that's completely subjective. It's opinionated. It doesn't really need to even be discussed. Each artist has their own unique touch to something that they touch. And John Romita Jr. has had a big part of the Spider-Man universe growing up and developing through Spider-Man, or through Marvel, along with Daredevil and a few other things he's had his hands in. And so the big discussion is this, it was announced like a month ago or so that the different variant covers and some images came out for Spider-Man, the 1000 Legacy cover that for Amazing Spider-Man, and it was just crazy. It's already to 1,000 now. I'll say this. That, I mean, it should be at 1,000, honestly, but there's a time, I mean, because Amazing Spider-Man ran from like 1963 on. Amazing Fantasy came just before that. So, I mean, it's been, geez, how many years is that now? I'm trying to do the math in my head. It's 70 years, right? But there was a time where even like Marvel was like hitting it hot, and they were just like, let's do bi-monthly now, like 2 issues a month. So really they kind of jumped the shark a little bit there. I wouldn't say jumped the shark, but they just kept churning out product for the sake of making money. So you'd have your early and late issue. So it helped boost the number. Basically, we wouldn't be at 1,000 right now if it wasn't for that. Anyway, so John Romita Jr. and Paolo Rivera, they worked together on issue 100 on a cover that was going to be cover A. And so the cover came out as a preview, and it was it did not get a good reception. I'll just say that. And I looked at it, and I'm not an artist, okay? I'm more of a writer. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Anybody want a writer on their staff, let me know. It's a joke. I'm not trying to pitch myself. I'm just saying I'm a better writer than I am an artist. But so I'm not one to, I know how to interpret art. I know how to recognize good art versus bad art, or maybe certain things. I mean, I might not have the fine details or the fine eye for finding certain things in art that other people can see as artists. But I do know how to say, yeah, that looks appealing to the eye, or it could have done a little better, or wow, that like even is getting noticed. And there's, again, subjectiveness, right? So I will say that when I looked at the cover, I thought, okay, so that's what they're going with. I was trying to be very subtle. I was trying to be nice about it. I'm not saying it's a bad piece of art. I'm just saying it's not probably his best work, okay? And we can say that about a lot of artists, honestly. And people that I admire, that I know get a lot of criticism as well for their way of doing things. It's just, it happens, okay? Frank Miller has an off day. Rob Liefeld might have an off day. Kirby might have had an off day. Like a lot of people could have had a bad day at the office when trying to come up with something that they need to get done. McFarlane, anybody, okay? And so I saw it, and there's one thing I will only say about this from a critiquing perspective, okay? And so just to describe the cover, it's Spider-Man. It looks like he's swinging in the air in New York or whatever, in the city. You see the buildings to the left and right of him, and he's got his hands in the very like the "I love you" sign language hand motion. So he's hitting his little web slingers, and he's doing what people have described as a squat. Okay, he's squatting in air while swinging. Now, I've seen some people do some things with this image that it just did not show any respect to John Romita. I'm sorry. That they photoshopped it real quick, or AI generated it into something else, and it looks bad. And so then I'm not going to give any weight to that. I'm just saying that people take it and roll with it and have fun with it, I guess. And so it started kind of getting mocked real easily online, through forums, through Reddit, through social media. And people were like, why is this the big cover for issue 1000? The only thing I can say about it is that it looks too symmetrical. Okay. That's my personal opinion of it, is that it just looks way too, like, it has no fluidity to it. It doesn't look like Spider-Man just kind of careening. Like, I think of so many different covers or different, ways where he's in a pose or whatever. And this just looks like he's just like, it looks way too symmetrical for Spider-Man. And when I think of it, it doesn't look like it belongs on a comic book cover. It looks more like it belongs on like a balloon, like if you go to the, like a party store or whatever, and you like, I need a Spider-Man blue, and this is what they blow up for you, and he's doing this pose. It looks like it belongs for like marketing, not so much a cover. And that's just my only one take about it. Now, again, John Romita, I couldn't draw it. He's a much better artist than I am. But I'm not saying it's necessarily the worst thing I've ever seen ever in the world. It's just, and we've already gotten feedback from other artists saying, look, like think about Frank Miller, what he was doing later in his career. He, obviously he wasn't hitting the mark, there's some, but then he was still widely regarded as like one of the top, because of his history. So they were kind of giving him a little bit of like cred, like, yeah, he's still Frank Miller. So you still can't touch him on an artist level. He's going to do some crazy wild stuff. Just accept it for what it's worth. And I know like other artists that have made some pretty harsh remarks to John Romita Jr. Even before this, I'm not going to put names out there. I'm just saying I've heard comments in the bubble of things. So now it turned into this whole drama where John Romita Jr. is now getting disrespected for doing this, and that it should have been probably like, maybe they should have, before releasing the cover, like reviewed it a little bit better and maybe had like more sets of eyeballs on it to say, okay, maybe we can like, let's change the direction. Can you like do this differently? And then the other thing too is that Paulo Rivera was part of the art on that, like the inks and everything like that. So a lot of people are saying that and even I think JR said, John Romita said that the art, that like the inks weren't really laid into it correctly. It has a little bit more of like a three-dimensional kind of approach to it. Kind of looks very digitally altered, like it was almost done in maybe like a computer program rather than hand drawn, or it was sketched and then like finished in a computer program that didn't really do it much service. So now they've got Pepe Larraz that's now credited with part of it, because they went from this whole point of like they were just going to like exit out completely and not release it, which there's a lot of people that respect John Romita Jr. They don't care whether this cover was like not up to the standard that we've seen in the past. They still wanted him to be part of issue 1000 because of his time with Spider-Man, and to be able to have that cover and be able to add it to the collection. And I know people that I've seen in social media that are just like, it doesn't matter if it's like the worst thing in the world, they will support it for Spider-Man, and so I respect that this is what they attach themselves to. I have no like reason to tell them they should think otherwise. That's completely up to them. Okay. We all have our taste of what we like and what we want to see in our collections. And again, this is me being trying to be like positively critical, because some people love some of that late Frank Miller work that looks really kind of like up there. But if they're like, a lot of people are more fans of the artist than the actual everything behind the artist, that they created. They want to support their favorite artist. So to respect to them, I mean, like, that's fine, support who you want to support. And so now it's gone from this status of it was going to be cover A to now it's going to be cover double A. Like they brought it back from the like they basically said no, we're not doing that, and then they were like no, let's like, it's been back and forth. The fan bases that are supportive of John Romita have like won at points of this whole process, and then they've lost to the people who are bashing this cover. And then like Marvel's stuck in this like limbo of like, well, we're trying to appease the fan base that wants this, so now we're just going to release it as a variant. And then there's been reworks of the cover from a coloring standpoint that have improved some of like the structure, like some of the depths of the image from like where it was hand drawn or sketched out, and then changed to like be a little bit more like less computer graphic-y, if that's the best way to describe it. Because it does have a very, I hearken back to what Transformers Beast Wars was. Like back then in the mid 90s when Beast Wars came out, it was a completely different element of style compared to the 80s cartoon. And we were also trying to embrace this way of being able to say, oh yeah, this is the new wave of how art's going to be done, is this digitally looks like a Sega Saturn CD style of art. And I was completely shut off by, like, I was not a Beast Wars fan. I mean, just because the art was just, it looked like just really weird. Um, and so, but that kind of like it started translate. It started moving its way. Like digital artwork started becoming a thing in the comic book industry from a time perspective of saving time on inks, and you can do so much more things with the computer. Some people, I'm not a fan of doing it that way, although I get that some people can make it work for them and they can make a better product than what we had 30 years ago. And I just this cover looks very much like it was processed through a computer to finish like the final stages of it. Again, I wasn't there, so that's my interpretation of what we're seeing. And I have no reason to say that I dislike John Romita Jr.'s work. I've seen plenty of it in a lot of different issues. I've seen different cover photos or images that he's done. And there's a lot of things that John Romita Sr. did that I really enjoy. And Spider-Man is just kind of like this. It's not hard to screw up Spider-Man. If this was like X-Men, this would be a totally, because there's a lot more moving parts there, because there's a lot more characters on the cover. And at least with Spider-Man, there's like, you can get the simplest form of Spider-Man. It still looks like Spider-Man. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at here with this cover is a very simplified, symmetrically, like too perfect symmetrically to look like Spider-Man, but it does, So, again, if you go online and Google the images of John Romita issue 1000, I mean, it's just become a thing. And now Marvel's got this whole mess in their hands and they're trying to figure it out. And, it just comes off of bad timing with Brand New Day coming out. And because this is like a time to really embrace that we're getting like the 1000 milestone issue, and we're getting a new film that honors a lot of the legacy with a lot of the old characters or covers or like interpretations of Spider-Man in the film. So again, that's like my way of viewing the picture, the image, is that it just looks like kind of like a, I don't know. There's like things you get that are like age brackets, right? So you got like here's Teen Titans, but it's for Cartoon Network, and this is how they're designed, and they don't look like a comic book Teen Titans because they're more like dumbed down, and so that this kind of feels like in that limbo of, it's like a kind of a dumbed down Spider-Man image, but it's not like it's completely dumbed down. It's not like it was drawn by a 5-year-old. It was drawn. I mean, it's got some quality to it. It could have been better, obviously. And I'm not trying to knock John Romita Jr. You never know what was going on with him at that point in time when he was approached to do a cover. He could be. Artists are a unique group of people that they just, you don't like, they're, a lot of them are very quirky. A lot of them have different like things they're going through at different stages of their lives. And again, I respect what John Romita Jr. has done in the past. I mean, he's obviously done a lot more in comic books than I could ever even raise merit to. So I'm not trying to completely say he's the worst thing that ever happened to Spider-Man. Plenty of other people are trying to say that right now at this point, but let's just, you never know. Again, this comes back to the Sonic the Hedgehog thing, right? We all had an opinion about something and tried to say, look, can we change it? Can we make it better? We're not trying to say fire the studio or the people that are working on this thing. Can they just make it better? Can they make it right? And we're dealing with that with like, certain video game properties. There's certain games we're waiting on for video games that are just taking forever, whether it be GTA 6 or a new Fallout game or a new Skyrim game or, the big studios that have something lined up. And it's like, when are we going to get it? Well, do you want it now and to not be polished and to not be test played? Or do you want them to take the extra step and the extra mile to make it worthwhile to when you get it, you have no complaints or minimal complaints? And so I think that, it's like, I'm glad that Marvel's listening to the feedback. I just hope that they can take an approach to where maybe it turns into, like, what if they just say, you know what, John Romita Jr., can you come back to us with something like, I don't know, here's a few ideas, like maybe the communication was off. You don't know. I mean, there's been so many, like, there's so many things that could have happened behind the scenes that we're so inept about that it just takes some time to kind of think, okay, like, we're misjudging this whole situation. And I think we need to give it more time. And you know what? It's doing one thing. It's bringing more attention to Spider-Man and the comic book and the 1,000 milestone. So maybe this is kind of a win-win in some cases for Marvel and at least Spider-Man in this case. But we'll wait to see. So again, leave your comics feedback of what you think. I'm not here to shoot anybody down. You're all entitled to your own opinions. I try to harvest positivity in the comic book community. We're an awesome community. We can be outspoken, but we can do it respectfully. And we've shown plenty of times where we can do that. And I hope that we can all try to find a way to take someone's very negative comments and try to talk them into a position where it's like, look, just let's be realistic here and let's not harm the industry more than it's worth harming for just an opinion. So I always just emphasize we try to breed that kind of positivity amongst each other and get each other through these trying moments, even though they're very questionable to be this, overworked about something, but it's worth talking about, and we collect these things and we honor our collections. So until next time, my social media again is Chuck the Comic Guy on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Substack. Till next time, see ya.
Let's cut out of here.